Hi there, welcome. Do you remember the first time you opened Photoshop? Well, I do. Everything was new to me, everything was foreign. I was a little bit confused and also very frustrated because I had no clue what I was doing. So, what I want to do for all the new Photoshop beginners is to create a 5 video tutorial that will help you as you begin learning Photoshop. So if you are a newbie on my channel, this video is for you. I'm so excited to walk you through on how to open a file, how to save, how to use the basic tools in Photoshop. So without further ado, if you're ready, let's jump right into this tutorial. It's going to be fun, so please buckle up, get a drink, get a coffee if you want, and let's roll. To begin using Photoshop, the first thing you want to do is to have the software. The good thing about Adobe Photoshop is that they do have a 7-day trial version that you can download and install on your laptop to use. Now I would recommend for newbies to download the program on your laptop. It's more easily and more friendly to use that way. So after the 7-day trial, if you want to purchase, you go to the different plans that they have. Now, the one that I would recommend is the $9.99, which is a bundle for the Lightroom and Photoshop. Now, Lightroom will allow you to edit photos. Plus, you also have the Photoshop that you can use for the purposes of what this training is about. So the other thing that I want to share with you are websites that offer free high resolution images that you can use, let's say in your flyers or for your design. These two websites are where I pull most of the images that I use in my tutorials, and these are all free. So the first one is on splash.com, the other one is pixabay.com. So now that we have this, I'm going to show you what to do once you get into Photoshop. When you open up Photoshop, I already have used it for a while, so I have recent files that I have already opened. So you can see them on the bottom. But if you open Photoshop new, you wouldn't have these recent photos since you have not used them already or you haven't done anything in Photoshop. So the first thing that you want to do at the very top, you go to File and then you click on New. When you click on New, a new window opens up for you. You see that there is a custom template that you can use, or you can just go through the different options that they have. They also do have different templates as you scroll through. There's one for letter. If you want the one for art and illustration, you can see that there are basic templates that you can drop in. But what I typically do is that you go to the custom, that way you can choose the size that you want. So to create a new file, you want your width, whatever width you want. For purposes of teaching, let's say we have a width of 10, height of 10, resolution of 300, and then I keep all my dimensions in inches because that I understand easily. So I just do that. But then there are some times where, let's say you want to create a template for YouTube. YouTube already has a specific dimension and they will tell you sometimes it's in pixels. So you choose that and then you can put in the exact dimension that is being given to you. But for the purposes of this, we'll keep it in inches. You also want your color mode to be RGB. You want custom. background, the custom background, or if you do a transparent, you get nothing in the background. You can also do white. So we're just going to leave it on white. And then what you want to do is click on create. Once you are in your working file, what you see, the white area is called canvas. And that is where everything you do will show up. Now, at the very top, we have what we call the menu bar. And that is the same place you go to save your work. And then to your left, we have the tools. The tools are what you use to draw and create your piece. And then on the right-hand side, we do have the layers panel. It allows you to bring some images forward and put some objects beneath. So it's very useful when working within Photoshop, and also naming your layers. That helps you to know what layer to turn off and what layer to leave on. And then right above, we have the color, the swatches, the gradient, and the patterns. And these are all areas that we will go in depth. But for the purposes of today, I'm going to do a quick run through of the different tools that are available to you on the left-hand side. So the first one is what we call the Move tool. So to demonstrate the Move tool, I'm going to go into this folder and I'm going to bring in this image. And as you can see, it was very easy. If you want to bring in an image, you make sure you want to go to the file and you want to click on the image. You want to drag it into your Photoshop and just release. So I'm going to delete this one since I already have one in there. So if you want to move this image, let's say we want to move it up, with your Move tool activated, you just move it up just like that. If you want to bring it down, you do the same thing. If you want to move it to the side, so basically this is a thing you can use to move anything. Also, if you have your image activated, you can also use your up and down arrow on your keyboard to move your image, or you can use your side arrows to also shift it from left to right. So the next tool we are going to look at is the Eclipse Marquee tool. So if I click on that, I can draw an eclipse. If I want to fill this in, you want to go down here next to your layers panel and you want to click on this plus sign. This plus sign will generate a new layer. And then you want to pick your paint bucket, which is this. You want to go to your color. You want to change your foreground by double clicking on it. A new window will open up. You can choose a different color by clicking within this big box. If you don't like the red, you can basically hold this arrow and you can move it to whatever color you want. You can also just use your mouse to just click and drag and choose whatever color you want. Click the color, click OK. Using your paint bucket, we can fill that in. And then you can press Control D to deselect. Now, if you don't want this anymore, you can basically turn it off by clicking on the eye icon next to your layer, or you can get rid of it completely by clicking on your layer, dragging it to the trash can right in the corner, and it will get rid of it. So the next tool we want to talk about is the lasso tool. Now, the lasso tool helps you to make any shape that you want. And just like the eclipse or the circle marquee tool, you can paint within this. But to paint it, we want to make a new layer, and then we can just paint within. If I want to paint it black instead of the green, all I need to do, you see this arrow, you just click on it and it will flip between the two colors for you. And then with my paint bucket activated, I can click within again, and then it will change the color for you. So you press Control D to deselect. Now the question is, what if I want to go back and reselect the shape to change the color? It's very easy. As you can see, your layer is selected. So if I change the color by clicking on the black, I can go back and change this color, let's say to a red. I can click OK, and then with my paint bucket, I can click back on that little image and it will change it for me. If I want to get rid of it, I can just turn it off to get rid of it, or I can completely delete that layer. So with that said, that brings us to the next tool, which is the quick selection tool. Now, the quick selection tool allows you to make a selection around a subject, or let's say an object. We'll demonstrate by bringing in another image. I'm going to drag this image in to our working file, and then I'm going to just scale it by holding one end. I'm going to pull it, and then holding the other end, I'm going to pull it to center it. Now, if you have an older version of Photoshop, if you click one end, it will not give you a proportional scale. You will have to press your shift down to have a proportional scale as you drag it. But in the new version, if you press down the shift, you basically can do the same thing. It actually distorts it for you. But with the older version, if you hold down the shift, you can basically scale it proportionally. So if you want to scale but not proportionally in the older version, then you don't hold down your shift. So once you have your image in the scale you want, you double click to deselect. And now if we want to get rid of the background using the quick selection tool, we want to make sure that we are on the new selection and not the plus or the subtract. Those ones you use when you want to add to your selection or you want to take away from your selection. So with the quick selection tool, you want to click on select subject. Now, if you click on select subject, Photoshop will generate an outline around your subject. You can use your subtract from to take away from this area. So we can basically click within, and as you can see, it makes a selection in that area for you. So let's say that now we have our selection and we want to get rid of the background. All you need to do is to come down to your layers panel. Next to it below, you will see this icon that says layer mask. If you click on that, you see that Photoshop takes away the background for you. Once you have your selection made, I'm going to turn this other layer off first so we can see. And I'm going to move this up a little. You can basically cut out your background or basically hide it. And we use the layer mask to do that. So you click on this icon and you see that it hides the background for you. There are still some imperfection with our selection, which we'll have to take care of. But this is just to show you how to use that tool. There are other tutorials that I go in depth on how to take off the background of a subject, which you can look into. So the next tool we want to talk about is the crop tool. So let's say we go back. Let me turn this off. So this is our image. I'm going to resize my image. I'm going to move my image all the way up, and I'm going to enlarge my image to fill up the canvas, and I'm going to double click. So we are going to demonstrate how we use the crop tool. So let's say I want to crop this image. you see that once I click on the crop tool, a selection is made around my canvas. I can hold one end and then I can either crop this way or that way. And you can see that I can even open up my canvas, which picks up on all the other part of my image. So if I double click, you see that I get a bigger window. So let's say that I want to open up my canvas even more. If I click on this, I can open up the sides. If I open up the sides, I'm going to press Control Alt, and I'm going to use my mouse to zoom out or zoom in and out so we can see every piece of our canvas. I can reposition my image, let's say here, and if I want, I can rescale it to make it bigger to fill up my canvas. I can double click and then maybe I can move it to the center. Okay, so that's how you use your crop tool. Let's say that I want it smaller. I can go back, click on my crop tool, and I can just resize my canvas, double click. The next tool is your frame tool. Now, your frame tool allows you to create a boundary in which you can throw in a different photo. So if I draw a boundary, you see that the frame, because I already have an image, it picks up that image and it puts it within that frame that I have drawn. If I want to bring in another image, if I go to my folder and I drop this image into that, you see that my image only fits within the frame that has been created. So that is how you use the frame tool. I really like this. This is really nice. All right, so moving along, I want to show you how to use the eyedropper tool. Now, the eyedropper tool helps you to choose different colors that you want to use in your project. So if I want to pick up, let's say, the white in my canvas, if I pick up my eyedropper tool and I click in this area, notice that the foreground color changes. If I click in the orange area, my foreground changes. If I click in the red, it changes as well. So that is how you use your eyedropper. You basically use it to pick different colors. I can even use that. So as I move my mouse, you see that my foreground color keeps changing to wherever I put my eyedropper. The next thing on the toolbar is what we call the healing brush, the spot healing brush tool. So the spot healing brush comes in very handy if somebody has acne on their face, and as a photographer, you want to clean up the face and hide all the blemishes that maybe the person didn't get the time to do makeup to hide it. So for the purposes of this, I'm just going to fake in some acne. We're going to use a spot healing brush to just get rid of these pimples. So with our spot healing brush selected, you're basically going to draw almost like you're tracing over where the acne is. And as you can see, it just disappears. So Photoshop is using an intelligent IA to basically replace the area where the spots are with a more refined skin tone. So that is for the healing brush. And the next one is the brush tool. So the brush tool, as the name says, is you can use that to paint. And then if you want to change the brush head, you just go up to the size and you change it. If you want your brush to be hard, you can move the hardness to whatever you want. If you want to change the brush type, you can also change that here as well. There are different brush options that you can choose from. And let's say for demonstrating purposes, if I want to paint, I already have my color selected. I can click on my layer, the background, and let's say I want to paint, I want to change the background color. So as you can see, I'm just painting over this and I'm just changing the background color. And now we have something like this. So if I turn off this layer, you still see that there are still areas that I need to paint over. If I turn back off this layer, you see that the whole background has been painted. So you can either paint the whole background with the brush, or another faster way of doing that is using your bucket. So if I change the foreground to green and I use my bucket, I can just paint that. And as you can see, it changes the color for me. So you can either use the paintbrush or you can use your paint bucket to achieve the same purpose. Now with the paint bucket, it covers the whole entire canvas. But with the brush, you can paint in specific areas. So that is the difference. So now that I've already shown you how to use the paint bucket, we will skip that when we get to it. So the next one is the clone stamp tool. Now, the clone stamp tool allows you to make basically a duplicate of anything that you select. So to demonstrate it, I'm going to make sure I'm on the right layer, and then holding down your shift, holding down your alt, you want to click in the area where you want to duplicate. So let's say I want to duplicate this subject. I'm going to click holding down my alt, and it makes a selection. So if I begin to paint, you see that Photoshop is basically cloning another of the same person for me. And if I move my mouse and I restart again, you see that I can create another copy of the same thing. So that's how you use the clone stamp tool. So the next thing after the clone tool that I want to talk about is the eraser tool. So with the eraser tool, if you click on the eraser tool, and let's say that we want to erase a portion of our subject, what you can do is that you want to first of all increase your brush head. And now let's say we want to erase a portion of our subject's image. So as you can see, I'm just getting rid of it. I can even increase the brush head, and I can even get a bigger area to erase. And sometimes I use the eraser tool if I want to erase a portion of my image, but I want to have this gradient effect. Sometimes I want this gradual effect. So you make your eraser head bigger, and you also want your hardness to be at 0. So you get this smooth transition effect created. So that is how you can use your eraser. If you want the area you erase to show harder than just the gradients, you can change your hardness to 100%. And then when I do this, you can see that you get a very sharp eraser. So that is how you use the eraser tool. You can either get a very gradual effect of the erasing, or you can get a very hard effect of your erased area, if that makes sense. So I'm going to just press Control Z to go back. Oh, another trick. Let's say that I want to go back a couple of times. I can either do Control Z to go back, or you can go to Edit and then do redo, it will go back, or you can do undo and it will go back. The other technique is to go to View and then go to Windows and then go to your history. when you go to your history and you open it up, you can see all the different commands that you've already done. And I can just click on where I wanted to go back to. If I wanted to go further, I can keep clicking till I get to where I want it, or I can even go back. So as you can see, you can just keep going back to the place or to the exact location where you want. So in this case, I want to go back a little bit further. So this is where I want to end, and I'm just going to collapse that. So the next thing we want to talk about is the paint bucket. Of the paint bucket I've already addressed. So we are going to move on to what we call the Blair tool. So with the Blair tool, you either have the Blair tool or the Sharp tool. So, and the Smart tool. So with the Smart tool, just as its name suggests, you can just basically smudge. Let's say you're making a painting, you can use that, effect on your painting, and then create different effects. So we don't really need that. So I'm going to press Control Z so we can go back. And then I'm just going to show you how to use the Blair first. So if we zoom into our subject's eye, you see that both eyes are sharp. Now, if I reduce the brush head a little, I want to make the right eye a little bit more Blair. So I'm going to just brush over this or go over this eye. As you can see, the eye that was sharp now becomes Blair. If I want the left eye to be more sharper, if I choose the sharp tool and I go over that, you see that it begins to be even more defined in the detail of the left eye. So if I zoom out, you can see one eye is sharper, the other eye is Blair. So this is a tool that you can use. Let's say you have a picture and you want to blur out maybe the background. You don't have to use Gaussian blur or the different techniques. You can basically use this tool to basically blur out the background of your subject while the subject pops further. So this is a very quick and easy tool to use. I'm going to press Control Z to go back a couple of times. So we have, oops, I'm going to go back one more. I'm going to go to my history and I'm going to go back just like that. And now we have this. So we want to move on, and I'm going to show you now how to use the dodge and bend tool. So with the dodge and bend, I want to bring in another image that we are going to use. So I'm going to create a new layer. I'm going to click on this icon, which is the add new layer. And I'm going to go to my image and I'm going to drag this image back into the file. And I'm going to turn off this image and I'm going to use my move tool, which we've already discussed. I'm going to move this up and I'm going to scale by holding one end and I'm going to just move it. I'm going to double click to deselect. I'm going to zoom in by holding down my Alt and Control with my mouse. You can zoom in and out. So with this image, if you want to use the dodge tool, basically you click on the dodge tool. The dodge tool will make wherever you paint lighter. So if I have my image, if I have my layer selected and I click on my image, it will ask me to convert my image into a raster image before I'll be able to apply this effect. So you want to click OK, and then you just want to begin to paint in the area that you want lighter. And as you can see, as I'm doing that, the image begins to get lighter. If I change my mind and I want it to be darker, I can go back and then choose the burn tool. Now with the burn tool, you can begin to make that same area darker. If I want to make this even more darker, as you see, I can even make this area more darker. I can change this balloon and make it more darker. If I want this balloon to be lighter, I can go back to the dodge tool and I can make this even more lighter. So that is how you use the dodge tool and the bend tool. You can also use the sponge. Now the sponge, it basically desaturates your image for you and takes away the color in your image. So the more you do it, the more it takes away. The less you do, the less of the color it pulls out. So with that said, I'm going to turn this off and we are going to go back to this image. I just love it. It's so nice. I want to just keep your excitement high. So let's stick with this image. So the next thing that we want to learn how to do is to use the pen tool. Now, the pen tool allows you to make a selection of an object or anything that you want. So let's say I want to make a selection of just the hair. I can zoom in, and then with my pen tool, I can make just a quick selection. And as you can see, the pen tool is a little hard to use, but you will have to practice it a couple of times to become perfect with that. And as you can see, I'm not that good with the pen tool because I don't use it that much. But as you practice over and over again, you will become an expert with that. So I'm just making a quick selection around the hair. Now I'm going to close that off. So to make the selection, you want to right click and then say, make a selection. You want the feather radius to be 0. We press OK, and then it makes a selection. So let's say I want to maybe change the hair to maybe a red. I can add a new layer, and then I can change my color to let's say a purple or pinkish. Click OK, and then with my paint bucket, I can fill that in. And then if it's not what I want, I can even just take down the opacity. So the other thing you can also do with the pen tool is that, let's say, I'm going to go back a little to show you. If I press Ctrl Z a couple of times and I go back to just the selection, I can also click on, I'm going to delete this layer. And I'm on this layer, which we are working with. If I click on the layer max, as you can see, it cuts out just that piece for me. So this is a quick way if you want to just select the head. So I'm just going to press Ctrl Z to go back, Ctrl D to deselect. I'm going to zoom out by pressing down my Control and Alt and using my mouse. I'm just zooming in and out. The next thing we want to talk about is the text tool. Now, the text tool is very easy to use. You click on the text tool. If you click on the horizontal and you click within your canvas, you can just begin to type, or you can change the size. Let's make it bigger so we can see. And then you can either begin to type, or you can even change the color. Let's say we want a white, and we can type in smile. And if you want to increase it, all you need to do is click on your move, and then you can just scale it. This way, we can double click to deselect. Or what you want to do, if you want to change the font style, you can click on your tool. You can click on your text tool again. You can highlight your text, and then right here at the top below the menu bar, you see the font option. all you need to do is click within your font option just once with your down arrow or your up arrow. You can begin to flip through the different fonts and you can begin to change the font style to whatever you want. Now, with some font style, you even have the option of making it bold or italics. So let's say I get another type font, which allows me to change it. Well, this one is not, but let's say Arial. So with the Arial, you still have different options that you can still choose from, apart from choosing the font itself. Next to it, you can also change the size of the font. We can take the size down smaller, or we can make it bigger. Or if I want a size that I don't see here, because Photoshop ends at 72, I can manually type in whatever size I want, press enter, and you would get that size. And I can use my move tool to move it. So what if I don't want the line beneath? So you can go to your character right here, and then you can uncheck your underline and it will take it off. So what if I cannot see my character? Just look up your character. You go to your window and then you just look up your character, and that will open up your character for you. With your character open and with your text selected, you can either change your size by just moving your slider left and right, or let's say we want to make all of this text lowercase. You can click on the double T and it will make it lowercase. If I want to italics, I can click on that. Or if I want it bold, I can do that, or italics or lowercase, whatever you want. There are so many options that you can play with. If I had two-line text and I want to space it in and out, this is what you do to space it in and out. If you want to close the gap between your text, you just go to your VA, and then this is how you close the text within the space within your text. So that completes all the different things you need to know about text. So the next thing we are going to talk about is how to use the polygon tool. So with the polygon tool, you have different options. You have the rectangular tool, you have the rectangular ellipse, you even have the line tool, and you can create your own custom shape. So these are all options that you can use to create a shape. Let's say I want to create a shape here and I want it, I can leave it white, or I can actually change the foreground to black with my paint bucket. I can click within, make a selection of my rectangle with my paint bucket. I can actually fill that in. So you can do that, or let's say that I go back and I want a custom shape. If I click on that, I can just create any shape I want by going to the shapes option above here. I can click it down and I can choose any shape I want. It can be a boat, I can go up to leaves, I can choose something, or I can even go to animals and I can pick whatever shape I want and I can just drop that in here and I can just press OK and it creates the shape for me. So that is how you create your shape. If you don't want this, you can just click on it and delete it. So I'm just going to delete these mouse and just leave the square. So that is how you use the different shape options. So the next tool is the zoom tool. And the zoom tool, you can use it to zoom in and out. And when you look above here, you can have it at 100%, or you can do fit screen. So it will just fit the screen. If you say fill screen, it will zoom in more, but typically we always want the fit screen. So that is basically how you use it, or you can even press the control, hold it down, and you can also move your objects while you have your zoom activated. So if you press down your Alt, your zoom now becomes the move tool and you can move things around. But if you release your Alt, it becomes the zoom tool and you can use it as the name says. So the next thing that we see here is the edit toolbar, which opens up the very tool you see right here. Different options are all showing up here. It's the same thing. So I'm just going to close this one. You can look into that as well. So the next thing, which we've already used a couple of times, is the foreground color or the background color. Now, when you open Photoshop, there's a default color which comes in as black and white. And you can toggle between by clicking this arrow, which will toggle between the black and white, or you can press X on your keyboard and it will toggle between those two colors. Let's say you want to change the color. You can double click on your foreground color and you can choose any color you want in this window, or you can even move this side arrows and you can choose whatever color you want. You can also change it to these colors and then you can choose. But if you keep it on the hue, you can choose whatever color you want. Let's say I want a different color. Let's say I want the orange. So instead of choosing between the option that has been provided, I can basically come here with my color, with my eyedropper, and I can pick whatever color I want here, and I can hit OK, and that will show up here. If I want to change the background color, I do the same thing. I click on that, and then I change the color, or I click on that, and I can choose whatever color I want. I can choose a white or a black, whatever color, and then I click OK, and that also is changed for me. So we're going to skip the layer max icon. That is something more, a little bit more advanced, which you don't need right now. So we're going to move on to the next thing, which is screen mode. So the screen mode, you can, if I want to show what I've done fully on my screen, I can click on this and then I can click it again. It will ask me, do I want a full screen? If I say yes, everything goes away and you just see your final product. So once we have this, if you want to go back to your workspace, all you have to do is press escape and it will take you back to the workspace. So with this, I believe that this gives you a very good understanding of how to use the Photoshop tools. Now, if you finish your work and you want to save it, one of the things that I'll tell you though is that whenever you start Photoshop, you want to always try and save every 5 minutes. Now, Photoshop also creates a backup in case your computer crashes, but always be in a good habit of saving every 5 minutes. So to save your work, you basically go to File, Save As, and then you can either save to the cloud or to your computer. So to save to your computer, you click on Save on my computer, go to find where you want to save your file, and then you want to rename your file if you haven't already renamed it. Let's say we want to call this Smile. So you want to make sure that you save it as a PSD. Now, the PSD is your working file, which allows you to edit. Let's say in a week or in a year, you want to change something on this particular work that you've done. You can always go back because you have a PSD file and you can edit it. But if you save it as a JPEG, you will not be able to edit it. So you first want to save your file as a PSD, which is your working file. You want to click OK. And then once you have finished your project, if you want to save your complete file, you go back to File, Save As, and you choose Save on your computer. Now, this time, instead of saving as a PSD, you actually want to save as a JPEG. Now, the JPEG is basically your final piece. And you also want to make sure you take your quality all the way up to 12. You don't want to change anything. You want to leave progressive and then just click OK. And then you have a final piece. So if I want to see my final piece, if I go to my folder, you see that you can see your final piece right here. If you double click on it, it will show you the final work that you have done. And there it is. Smile. I like it. So that basically gives you a gist of how to use the basic tools in Photoshop. So this is Photoshop 101. I'm going to do 4 more series. So I hope that you found this tutorial very helpful and very interesting. Please leave me a comment below. Let me know if there was anything that I said that wasn't so clear that you need more clarity on. And I'll be very happy to help you either through Instagram or through Facebook. So enjoy learning Photoshop. And if you create something, you can tag me on Instagram or on Facebook. It's very fulfilling when I see my students recreate the tutorial I made. So with that said, I'm going to leave in the description below the 2 images that I used in this tutorial so you can practice with this, how to use all of these basic tools as you build your skill in Photoshop. So if you found this tutorial very helpful, please like, comment, subscribe. Don't forget to turn on the notification bell for all future uploads, which will include the 4 other tutorials for beginners. So until next time, bye.